Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this edition of Hypnosis Week Live with myself, Alex Williams-Smith, better known to many of you as Jonathan Royal, the British bad boy of hypnosis from magicalguru.com. I'm excited this week that, well, you see, a lot of you may know I talk about things that are winky-wanky, arty-farty, tree-huggy, new-agey bullshit. And I will be asking questions along those lines during the next hour. Rest assured, I'm not totally losing the plot. But I have had the privilege of speaking to this lady we're going to interview before. So I know that there is some, shall we say, there's more sanity behind this than it may first appear. Trust me. We're going to be speaking to a lady who is the author of a book, Create Your Perfect Future. That's one of many, but coming out very shortly on the 14th of April, 2020. And I mention that because you might be seeing this in a few years' time, in which case the book's already on sale. And it's called Future Vision, Your Working Life, 10 Strategies to Help You Get Ahead. It's been released on the 14th of April, 2020 through Watkins Publishing, and you can pre-order it on Amazon now. We're going to definitely be talking about that. This lady is a clairvoyant of whom Paul McKenna, the world-famous hypnotist, has made comment that she is got amazing ability, whatever you make of that. She knows about the tarot, and she is mainly known for future life progression. Yep, using hypnosis to take people into the future. I know it sounds bonkers at first hearing, or into the past, so-called past life regression. So please welcome to the show the lady that fits all of these things that I've just said, here from England, Anne Jirsch. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Fantastic. So, Anne, tell us in brief to start with, and we'll get into your book and the different areas in more detail as we go along. But how did you end up where you are now? I.e., because at one point you were not the expert in future life progression and past life regression. At one point you were normal.
I don't know if I've ever been normal, but actually, as a kid, I was, because most people in my line of work have amazing stories. Oh, I had a vision and, you know, an angel appeared or some other stuff. I never had any of that ever. But my nan, my granny, my nan, because Londoners say nanny, not grandma. My nan was a fortune teller in the East End of London. She was quite an outrageous character, but she read the tea leaves and I used to stay with her a lot. And so I knew it worked because I'd hear the feedback. I'd hear her say things, then they would happen. So I knew it worked. So I would try and have a premonition, because everybody went in. You got to remember my generation, the jobs that I remember the school career officer coming around. You can work in a factory or a shop, or if you're really clever, you'd be allowed to type. Well, I wanted to be a bunny girl, but that's another story.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was skinny. I was like olive oil. There's no chance of me being a bunny girl. But so the next best thing was be a fortune teller. And I used to try and have a premonition, and it never happened. Even by fluke and guesswork, I never got it right. So, but I knew it did work. So I did what any self-respecting mystical person did back then, late 60s. I did what the Beatles did. The Beatles went to India. So I thought, well, that must be right. If the Beatles go there, that must be right. So I went off to India in my teens and travelled around. And I'm not very good at meditation and things. So I'm a fidget. Leos are. I bet you're a fidget. So I try and be all mystical. And I weren't very good at that either. But I met, he was actually a beggar, but he actually taught me all this stuff in Calcutta. Sat on a mat every day and I'd go and talk to him, and he started to open me up, and I was asking the dumbest questions, poor guy, but he was very patient. And when I came back, a friend bought me some tarot cards. Now I tried to read them before. Geez, were they complicated? And I can't, you know, as I say, I'm not very patient, so I'm trying to read this card that means this when it's next to that, but if it's over there, it means that I couldn't get my head around any of it. When I come back, my friend bought me a pack. I just opened them, could read them. I literally just would pick them up. Even now, I don't read cards. It's like they talk to me. Stuff comes into my head and it tends to be right. So I was happily reading cards for many, many years, many, many years. I was reading cards. And I started to hear about past life regression, and that gripped me. It made sense to me. But you go back then, there was no internet. I couldn't find a regressionist or anybody that did any training. And then the great Denise Lynn showed up in London, and I went along, and it was the most mind-blowing. She regressed 800 people in a room. 800. It was mind-blowing, and my experience made me even keener. And you've got to remember, as part of me is quite skeptical about everything, and I try and find the science behind things, but it just made sense to me. So I went and trained in hypnotherapy because I thought I better go and train in something. And there was no training for past. So I went and trained in clinical hypnotherapy, and I did build a practice, and I worked with that for a long time, and I really enjoyed it. But traveling around in time gripped me more. So for many years, for many years, I regressed people. Then one day, some young military lads popped in to see me and wanted to see something from the past. And we did like a group session, and we all jumped forward. And what we actually saw was, we didn't know we jumped forward. We thought it all gone wrong. I mean, we kind of went, oh, that was a waste of time. We didn't go back and see what we wanted to. What we saw was the attack on the Twin Towers 3 weeks before it happened, and in detail, and it shocked us. But we didn't know enough to stop it. You know, we didn't really because there'd been no presidents, so you know, how can you?
Okay, for the skeptical ones at home, I'm going to jump in here and play devil's advocate. So you're saying you thought you were doing a past life regression.
Yeah.
So you thought it had gone wrong.
Yeah.
But then when things came to light, you realised that you'd actually jumped forward, future life progression, and seen what was going to happen with the Twin Towers, 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
What made you believe when that happened in reality?
Yeah.
That is what you had all, I'm going to say, potentially just visualised, imagined.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, was it that clear that it had to be that, or could there be an element here of making it fit? It was just happened to coincidence. The buildings.
You do have to be careful about making things fit. Look, I'll tell you what, because it was actually my now husband that led the three of us, because we wanted to do a group thing, and so I got him to take us back, and none of us did go back. So first of all, he spoke to Steve and said to Steve, lovely Glaswegian, crazy military man, said to him, what do you see? Expect him to go back to see surpass. And he said, I've not gone back at all. I don't know where I am time-wise, but I haven't gone back. I'm seeing two skyscrapers next to each other, smoke pouring out of them. There's people on the ground running. There's dust everywhere. There's a helicopter going around. It says CNN. So this is America. That's all he said. So this is the conclusions, you know. So then he's asked Dave, and Dave said, I'm not sick. I haven't gone back either. I think we're just having a bad day. We're not on form today. He said, but I'm looking out over a bay, and I know it's America. And he said, and it doesn't make sense because all I know is the skyline has changed. But how can a skyline change? So he was baffled by that. Then he asked me, and I just said, I've not gone back, but I'm seeing Middle East pipeline oil. How can that be connected? So none of it made sense. But when it happened, and you saw these two buildings, two skyscrapers next to each other, with smoke coming out, we kind of felt that was what we'd seen. In fact, we're pretty sure. But the thing that is interesting is we've done that loads of times since, and we've not been wrong so far. So
okay. I'm just going to play devil's advocate a bit more here.
Yeah, carry on.
Is it possible? All right, even if it is, this wouldn't explain your part in this bit. But is it possible that the military gentleman had overheard, seen sight of documents, or something that they may not have been consciously aware of, or they were consciously aware of, but wouldn't have ever, under normal circumstances, out directly shared? Because there is more and more mounting evidence that the Twin Towers was not a terrorist attack. The government made it happen. It was a false flag. More and more mounting evidence.
Yeah.
And the military, therefore, would have involvement, certainly in America, but who knows, you know. Could they perhaps have been like offloading something that they knew was going to happen?
By the time we did that, they'd actually come out the military and working in private companies.
Okay.
But but that would have been very, very hidden knowledge, I think. I mean, it's highly possible. I've read the evidence. I know exactly what you're saying. Who's behind it is a different conversation, I think. But I don't think there was any way we could know. If anything like that is a setup, it's very, very well hidden.
Okay, because it's a more generalised, wider scope. There are people who would say that, and there's obviously two elements here: future life, progression, and past life. Start with past life. There's people who would argue that yes, genuinely people do go into past lives.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm guessing that you fall into that camp, given that you are the expert in this field.
I'm actually quite open-minded to everything because I think there's so many things we don't know. From what I see, it makes more sense to me to have more than one lifetime. Okay. When you see people have had and I thought that as a little kid, which didn't go down too well when you grow up in London and Church of England, don't go down too well. But it's never made sense to me that some people are born into such suffering and others aren't. So it's always, you got to remember, 3/4 of the world believe in reincarnation. I'm not a religious person. I try and be open-minded. If somebody come up with a brilliant explanation, I think one of the key things is, Jonathan, is that we don't understand time. And one of the things that comes out, I've got a list of quotes somewhere from all the greatest quantum physicists, and what they basically say is, if you think you understand it, you don't. One of them even said, I wish I'd never had anything to do with it. Which I've never had. It drives you mad trying to understand, because we're trained from birth to think of time as linear. But there is
construct, isn't it? We only know as human beings. So I've got a watch on, which says there's 60 minutes in an hour and there's 60 seconds in a minute. Yeah. But somebody created that. They made it up as a way of us relating to each other. It could be, had it been different, we could be sat here now and there's 50 minutes in an hour and 40 seconds in a minute or what.
Yeah. We don't understand it. And what we don't also understand is that we can tap into the future. And the remote viewers have actually proven this. I mean, massive amount of money has gone into studying remote viewing. And many of the great remote viewers have said it's just as easy to tap into the future as the past as the present. They don't have any problem. The one thing they have said is the future can be variable, which I'm relieved about. I don't want it to be set in stone. I like to think we're not robots. And so we can tap into the future. The remote viewers have predicted lots of things. But after this happened, I started to experiment with the lads, mainly with Dave, because Steve goes missing, or goes on missions, or he's off drinking, or he's doing something. He goes missing. He just appears in Windsor all of a sudden, out the blue, every 5 years. He's a great character. But I worked a lot with Dave, and one of the things we did, I said to him, I want to find Bin Laden. Okay. I knew where he was. I'd already put a cross on a map. He was up the Khyber Pass. I knew where he was. But I just thought I'll try and see if I can get him to tell me. But one of the things I asked him was, will they find Bin Laden? And his answer was, they're not actually looking for him. Mm-hmm. They are much more involved in all this than we know. Now, at the time, that was a ridiculous statement. We actually laughed. What do you mean they? I said, who's they? And he said, well, America, something to do with the UK, we're all involved in this. At the time, that was an outrageous thing to say. So it was really, really interesting he said that. And I said, so they're not looking for him. He said, no. He said, they're too busy getting ready to invade Iraq. He said, and they're going to say they have chemical weapons, but they know they don't. I wrote this down. This was like a few weeks after the attacks. So this was straight after, within weeks. And we just laughed at that. It sounded nonsense. And for 3 years, we would make predictions and experiment. And then one of the big shots in Self-Help said, why aren't you writing this down and documented it? So I started to do that. And I'd send him a copy and he'd say, this stuff's really extreme. This isn't it's things we can guess at. This is going to happen. There's going to be an earthquake here or whatever. This was really unusual stuff. And he said, this is really happening. So then I started to experiment with clients. And
can I jump in here and ask this?
Yeah.
Did you, and if you didn't, why didn't you? Okay. From a skeptical standpoint.
Yeah.
By documenting this, why do you write it down, but then send yourself a copy via sign for delivery that's clearly sealed up, signed over the seal, so that if need be, you know, in a court of law or in a public arena with the media, you could prove that you'd documented this weeks, months, days, or years, whatever, before, which would totally shut up any skeptics.
Do you know, I really wish I had done, but at the time I was Anne from Slough. I'm in this really crazy little office near a trading estate, totally unknown, had no credibility. One thing, working with the Future Life stuff, my life took off overnight. I mean, everything took off. Tapping into the future, your life takes off big time. And plenty of other people have said the same thing. But at the time, totally unknown. I just didn't even think of it. The internet was still quite early on. You know, I should have done. In fact, the person who's a big shot in self-help said to me, "You've got to write this down." And so I posted it to him. I should have posted it to myself. I know to do that, but we can certainly do it from now on. I mean, we've constantly predicted things. It's like 10 years ago, I said we'd be coming out the EU. Absolutely. I'm right now saying Italy's coming out. I absolutely tell you categorically, Italy will come out the EU. They will get their currency back. They will devalue their currency and money will pour in. They will thrive. So the other countries that are struggling in the EU will jump up and do the same thing. I categorically tell you that. So I do make your prediction. Now, I should do it more often. You're absolutely right. Should do. At the time, but I think also we didn't write it down. We kept thinking it must be a fluke. Even though we were getting everything right, I think there's part of us thinking it was a fluke. Although if you go to my second book, The Future Is Yours, there's quite a lot of predictions in there, and I must go back and reread it because I don't remember what I said. I don't. I did predict the iPad. Only the iPad, I said, is much more advanced than what you've got today. I predicted the Japanese tsunami, unfortunately, because that was awful. But yeah, we have predicted things, and I did put quite a lot of predictions in that book. I'll have to go back and see it again. I've been so busy developing what I do.
What would you say to people who might think, well, you know, perhaps through common sense or perhaps through, and this is the context of you kind of coming up with things clairvoyantly, but future life progression could also apply to the clients, maybe, that they could have picked up information from here and there that they're not consciously aware of, and through common sense, almost strategically work out that such and such is potentially likely to occur.
Or self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. In the same way that, you know, governments have think tanks to predict how market economy is going to go, and quite often they'll publish it at the start of the year, and you see that happens. Although some would argue they make it happen. Do you think there can be an element of, as you say, self-fulfilling prophecy or almost a logical awareness, but without consciously knowing that?
With the thing, I've looked at that quite a lot because I think, you know, but one of the things I've noticed is people, it's a bit like manifesting. Okay, so in a way, it's a bit like manifesting. So, and I've talked to people a lot about manifesting because they love it. They sit in their front room and they go, "I want a pink Rolls Royce," or whatever it is they want, or a bigger house, or win the lottery. They very rarely do. I mean, they're good at manifesting the new pair of shoes or the electric bill money, but they're not very good at the pink Rolls Royce. And so people's imagination, most people's energy is not going to make it happen. If it's something big, how many people do you know have manifested millions? And I know Oprah Winfrey champions this, but if she sat in her front room asking the universe or whatever, she'd still be sitting there, wouldn't she?
Without mentioning names, my experience is the vast majority of apparently massively successful, rich life coaches, hypnotists, personal development people made their money in a different industry, then got into the coaching, hypnosis, whatever, and gave the perception that it was those techniques that got them the lifestyle and the money, and it wasn't.
That's interesting. That is interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, so I can imagine that. Yeah, totally. I've worked in this field 45 years, but I have done well with property.
You know? Yeah.
But that's not how I've made my money. I've done well with property, but all it's done is got me bigger houses each time or whatever, or another property. Everything I've done.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a side hustle. But I do think there's something wrong if, for the sake of speaking, I don't know, hypothetically, you ran a chain of gymnasiums.
Yeah.
And then you sold them off and made a stack of money out of that, got yourself a big fancy house, and then started doing hypnotherapy and portraying that you'd bought your big fancy house and cars through doing hypnotherapy when you hadn't.
I'm somebody that likes to be very straightforward, and I've said many, many times, especially in my early years of working in this field, I couldn't pay my bloody bills. I mean, I've talked about my tough times because that's what motivates me. I don't want to be poor again. And I think there is a lot of BS in the field, people talking a lot bigger than what they really are. There's a lot of talk. People kind of like to show that they're, I've got so many clients, I'm so successful, look how big it is. And I kind of bail out of all that because I just think you'll get caught out. So I'm just always very, very straightforward with everybody and tell them my background, tell them where I'm from, tell them what I'm not good at. I just prefer to be very straightforward. So I've done okay in this field. For the amount of years I've been in it, I've actually taken a long time, is what I've often said to people.
You've earned your stripes, so to speak, as a saying.
Yeah, and I think we should earn our stripes, yeah.
What's your view on, don't worry, we'll get back to FLP and past life and stuff. It doesn't kind of integrate, but it just, there is a lot of bullshit out there, but there's a lot of people that probably are maybe seeing 8, 9, 10 clients a day, 5, 6 days a week.
Yeah, it might be.
God forbid. To me, personally, I don't know what your view is, but to me, I don't see how anybody can possibly give 100% the best possible therapist they could be to each client if they're seeing 8 or 9 of them a day.
No, I don't aim to see huge amounts of people. In fact, what I did was I doubled my prices and I see less people because my clients end up, I stay with them when I'm overseas, we go out for dinner. I mean, I kind of get to know my clients. So, and I prefer that. I want to kind of really look after my clients. So it's not, and a lot of them come to me, I mean, we end up with our speciality, it finds us. And for me, I get more people come to me to do with business than anything else. So I mainly get business people come to me. And so it might be for intuition. And, people are really shocked when they find out the caliber of people that come to me for readings, and they're basing huge deals on, based on talking to me, which is very flattering. So I've gone more that way. That is what I love doing. I love business. I'm not particularly good at it, which I've often said, but I do love working for business people and helping them grow their businesses, looking out for pitfalls, which is why the new book's about business. It is about work and business. And that's because that's what my work's been about for that's the direction it's gone more in. So I love that. I love that business people trust me with what's coming up. So no, I'm not interested in seeing dozens of people. You can do that, sit at the end of the pier, charge a small amount, sit there all day, you'd be exhausted. I don't think you do as good a job. I don't think so. I like to be clear-minded, focused, ready for my clients to make sure I do a good job. That's my aim.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there might be some things as we go along we don't agree on, but we can agree to disagree. But so far, I'm sorry, I'm agreeing with Anne, even for arty-farty tree hugging, because undeniably, anyone who goes on Google and taps in your name and spends 5-10 minutes searching will see comments from people and this, that, the other that shows undeniably, whether you think it's winky wanky arty-farty or not, you get results. And people are happy with those results. So what's it matter how or why it works, really, as long as you're getting the results, which you are doing. But in terms of past life regression, obviously we'll leave future life for last because that's the main emphasis of your new book. So we covered the idea that maybe, the different areas, people may genuinely have had past lives. Other people argue that maybe it's genetic cell memory, that you someone who was a relative that you're remembering things of. There's people who say that maybe you've just taken in stuff from books or films and you have creative visualization.
Yeah.
Some would argue that you are kind of just tapping into the universal consciousness, and it could be someone else's experience. And some say it's just like a metaphor. I mean, in therapy years back, I did experiment with past life regression, and on my website, there's videos of me doing like theatre show doing past lives.
Yeah.
And somebody who had a really sore arm, they couldn't lift it up during their past life, and I'm using that loosely. Maybe it was genuinely a past life, who knows? Mentioned that the arm had got chopped off in a sword fight.
Yeah. And
when they came back to awake consciousness, as it were, remembering this, they could suddenly move their arm. It was like once they'd found out about that having happened and kind of let go of that trauma from a past life, arguably, suddenly they were able to move their arm and there was no discomfort and they were fine. Do you find stuff like that happening?
There's loads of cases like this, loads and loads of cases. One of the most interesting is Dr. Ian Stevenson, who talked to children, and children, every so often you'll get a child that remembers their past life. And so he went and studied and looked into the finer detail, because a 5-year-old isn't going to know the name and address and blah, blah, blah. But he went off and traced them. So it's been really interesting with him. I mean, there was one case with a little boy in India, and he kept talking about my wife, my children, and he kept mentioning this village. At the time, you didn't have the internet and they didn't have televisions and things. But an uncle said, "Do you know, I've heard of that place. I'm sure it's right over the other side of India." But so he went and found that the family and the father had been killed. Nobody had been caught for killing him. And so what they did was they made the big journey, took the little boy there, and the little boy went straight up to this guy's house. He picked the children out playing with a load of other children, went inside the house and found money he'd hidden, and pointed to the woman and said, "That's my wife." And he actually named his murderer, and there was a big court case. And Dr. Ian Stevenson is very well documented. But it's funny. And there's loads and loads. I could tell you loads of stories that are just mind-blowing, really, absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, if Denise Lynn's in town again, I would suggest going, because I don't think there's anybody to touch her. You know, I went to one of hers where it was huge. I think that time was about 500 in a room. And she said, "You're sitting around people that you've known in a past life, but you haven't met them in this life." And she went round after, she went, "Oh, any Native Americans, any from Egypt?" And then she said, "Any First World War pilots?" And a whole section of the audience all put their hand up at this. Mind-blowing things happen with that woman when you go. I mean, it's such a profound experience. But, you know, some people are going to be thinking it's nonsense. Others will be open-minded. Others will totally believe it. I don't ever try and persuade anybody anything. I mean, everyone's got to come to their own conclusions. I know hypnotherapists who use it who don't actually believe in it, but it's a good way of accessing information. That the client doesn't want to talk about certain things or it's too painful. It's not so bad from a part if it's connected to a past life. So it's a useful tool, whether you believe it or not. I believe.
Yeah, as a metaphor. To disassociate the trauma, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's useful. There's loads of amazing stories where, I mean, one of my very early ones was a guy and he was such an odd character, but the first time he phoned me up, I just heard loads of shouting down the phone, then a big bang, and later he phoned me and said he was a lorry driver. He'd accidentally set off the fire extinguisher in the cab, and he was in the fast lane of the motorway, and he was just one of these crazy guys. But I took him back to a past life, and he was one of these bumbling characters. He always getting things wrong, and he'd get his words muddled up. And in the past life, he become articulate, and he was like, "Yes, well, my wife's burnt the pie again, and you're interrupting me when I'm eating." Every time I asked him a question, he got annoyed with me for interrupt. And it's one of my really early ones. And he went off. I think it was out Amersham or Aylesbury, where I'm trying to remember now. But he went off and he couldn't find himself in the records. He knew the year that he was a blacksmith. He knew what his house was worth. And what he did, he went in the local pub and had a bit of lunch and actually told the guy behind the bar, and the guy said, check the Quaker records. And he found himself in the Quaker records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he did some research, because what he said about the house existed, it was that amount of money, you know, it would have cost about that much to buy. So it fitted in. But as you say, that could be a fluke. You know, you've got to go through a lot. I remember also named Dr. Helen Wambach did some research. And what she did was she took groups back into past lives and asked some questions that you wouldn't naturally know, not the sort of thing you'd see in a movie or whatever, you know, really unusual things like that, utensils or footwear or certain things that would be quite not common knowledge. And she went to disprove it, and she ended up massively believing in past lives after doing a huge amount of research.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, so past that. So, yeah, I mean, whatever it actually is, there's definitely a good argument that therapeutically it can be positive for people.
The thing is, go and have a look. I mean, I've got a free download on my website if anybody wants to lay back and listen and just see if anything comes up. And, you know, it might not. Well, it depends on them. But, you know, I've had some great feedback. And I just thought it was quite a nice thing just to have it as a free download, let people lay back, see their past lives. It can be very interesting. One of the things that interests me with it is, who do you know now that you've known in a past life? And it can make so much sense when you've got conflict with your sister-in-law or your boss's hard work, or the day you saw that person and you fell in love with them and you felt like you'd always known them. It can really make sense of relationships. And I really love that. The soul group, the whole thing of, oh, we're all back again. As one guy I took back, he went, oh God, I'm married to the same bloody woman time and time again. You know, so you can have that where you go, you're repeating that pattern. You know, we're repeating patterns. But that bit really fascinates me. Who's around you now that you've known before? What happened?
Before we get on to future life progression, because I know that you know, like Paul McKenna said that, you know, you've got amazing clairvoyant abilities, and as I understand the word clairvoyant to mean, it means to see things that other people don't.
It's intuitive. So there's, in a way, it's knowing something you can't know through logic.
Mm-hmm.
So I class myself as an intuitive.
Okay, so not clairvoyant in the sense of kind of Derek Acor or John Edwards. You're seeing spirits.
But they're more mediums, and so they talk to dead people. I don't really talk to dead people. Well, I try not to talk to dead people. I'm more of an intuitive. I want to tap into what's coming up in the future, which some people will not get their head round, which I totally understand. But my job is to tap into the future and say, there's a deal coming up. This is the people, go for that deal, or they're offering you that, be very careful. So, you know, that's what I see as my job. So I'm the first intuitive to get a listing on IMDb.
All right.
Yeah. Got me a listing as an intuitive consultant, because I'm brought in on movies and TV shows.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's really good fun. It's nice to be acknowledged. I mean, I worked for these guys for a lot of years, but it's nice that they've acknowledged. In fact, they backed up my new book. Really, in fact, I had one Hollywood director call me up and say, "Do you want me to write something for your book?" And we offered. So, yeah, really good fun. Really good fun.
And by your new book, you're referring to Future Vision, Your Working Life: 10 Strategies to Help You Get Ahead. The one I mentioned that's being released on the 14th of April. Can you tell us what the book's about? What kind of things people will learn in it, and obviously, I know that ties in with future life progression. We'll come to that on a one-to-one basis with clients later, but your book, tell us about it.
Right, the book. Okay, so I started to notice people were struggling with the amount of change. Now, our brain filters have not upped enough for the change that's going on. Our brain filters out most of what's going on, but we're bombarded with so much information, so much choice, now we are not coping, and change is constant. And I spoke to a business leader a few years ago, and I said, I think we're going to have to reinvent ourselves every few years. And he said that's exactly the conclusion he's come to. The world is constantly changing, and people are not coping. They're burning out. They're not. Everyone's got hundreds of emails every day that they're not reading. They're subscribed to things. They're on every course going, trying to stay ahead. And then one thing I started to notice, that what works this year might not work next year, and that is a big one. You imagine clients coming to me saying, every year I do a promo and I get a certain amount of work. I've just done the promo, I haven't got a thing out of it. The world is going to keep changing, and so I put together strategies we need to thrive in the future. And how I did that, I did 3 years of research. I interviewed people who always seem to be one step ahead, that handle change, that seem to be thrivers, that be ahead of the game. So I just thought, who's around that's really super cool, that I know is dead smart, who's ahead of the game. It's just looking at hypnotherapy, your field. In the last 10 years, there's way too many hypnotherapists, and a lot of them have taken tin pot courses. They're not that good, but it's kind of watered down the market. So, I spoke to a guide. He said, in my town, he's been going about 30 years. He said, in my town, there's usually about 15. Now we've got 45. And he's had to go and get a day job. So,
you see, I kind of agree with you, but by the same token, the reason some of them have had to go and get day jobs isn't because there's more and more people. It's because they're crap at marketing, publicity, and promotion.
Well, some of them have done well up to now, but when a load of new people come on the scene and promise a lot and talk big, and I've come across them and they talk very, very big what they can do. And I mean, people go away and they don't see any change, and then they're disappointed. So I think it does get muddied every so often, but it is an example of how much has hypnotherapy changed, the techniques people use, various other things in the last 10 years. That's just one field. But
perceptively, to be honest, I don't think the techniques have changed at all. They're giving them different names to resell them to people, but the bits that work are the same as what worked in Mesmer's time, placebo, ritual, and belief change. But yeah, and from a marketing perspective, I definitely agree with you. What worked, like you say, what worked even last year doesn't necessarily work this year, because your visibility even on Facebook, what used to work on Facebook marketing doesn't work 2 months later, because they changed the flipping algorithms, don't they?
Well, exactly. So what I did, I looked at I kept going into the future to find out what skills we're using. And one thing they found is people at the top use their intuition far more than people lower down. That's fact. There's been a huge amount of studies into this. People at the top, and if you listen to the big shot, they talk about gut feelings. They talk about, I just knew to do this. They talk about their intuition. And so I found out, what I did was I started to break down intuition, because otherwise it is some woo-woo thing. Oh, I had this vision. And it don't really work like that. One that will interest you is, did you know when there's, say, a train crash, 25% less people show up? That's huge. A quarter of people don't arrive for the train that day. They've taken into account weather, weather reports and various other things. There a big football match on that day or whatever, so everyone's decided to stay at home. They've taken into account what variables they could think of. 25% less people. Now, this actually happened with my husband. We're both really bad of a morning. Okay, so that's it. Get up, drink tea, keys are there, jump in the shower, absolute robot. He's an absolute robot of a morning. A neighbour once said, I say good morning to him every morning, he'll go, vroom, just like that. March down, jump on that train, get into London, go on the tube. That's what he does. One day he got up and he went, I'm going to go in a bit later. I went, oh, you ill? No, I'm just going to. And he had no idea why. He even looked a bit confused. And that was the tube he normally catches was the one that was bombed. That is not unusual. That is not unusual. This happens a lot. When things crash, a certain amount of people show up late, and they don't wake up and go, oh, I've had this huge premonition. They go, do you know what? Yeah, I think I'll go later. Oh, I think I won't go. They'll give it some logic, as in, oh, I just thought I'd go in a bit later, or I need to do this, need to do that. But 25% less show up. That is huge. So people are aware of their intuition. What I did was I broke down how it works. I started to examine, so how your intuition works will be different from mine. So I actually broke down the components and started to examine people and talk to people and interview people and film people and watch how does your intuition work. So that's one of the things. I went right into that. The publisher asked me to put a lot of future life regression in, which I was really grateful for, because obviously it's my thing. So I do a lot of exercises where we go and have a look at the future.
Okay.
I teach people how to filter out all the noise. We're surrounded by so much noise, and you know that the people who do well are the people who focus. The people that are doing 10 different things. I mean, I've got people close to me who do a bit of hypnotherapy, but they're doing nails. You know, they're doing somebody's nail, but they're doing hypnotherapy, and they sell a bit of this and they do a bit of that. Are they going to be successful? No, they're not. You know, but the people who hone their skills and really focus and make that their thing, they're the ones that seem to do very well in life. So I teach people to get rid of the noise and simplify. The people who do well in the future, the people who simplify. You know, I mean, I sat with a friend of mine and watched some of your videos, and you go, do. This is what you do. Exactly what Paul McKenna, Richard Bandler, all the greys, they can take complex information, give it to you in bite-sized pieces. You go, okay, I tried to learn that, went on a course, read the book, and you go, bump, bump, bump. You do it. You do what the guys do, like Bandler. You give it to people. This is the process. This is how it works. No bullshit. No flowering it up. No complicating it to look clever. Straightforward. This is what you do. And that's what people. So I'm teaching people to simplify. The other, there's 10 different things. I won't go into all of them, but one of the other things is how to find your creative genius.
Okay.
Because as more things become automated, and people just say AI isn't going to take over, it's already taking over. Phone your bank. Go to your doctor, who'll be reading stuff off a screen. He isn't sitting there listening to you. You're looking at the side of his head while he's looking at the screen. Everything's becoming, people have no idea how automated everything already is. When you use your store card, they're analysing your purchases. They're analysing it. They know how much alcohol you drink. The automation is huge. The people that are going to thrive in the future are the genius ideas. Now, it's a study showed, NASA commissioned a study. They wanted to know to their engineers and rocket scientists were creative geniuses. And the scientists came in and perfectly identified them. Really clever stuff. And they found that was a very, very simple process. They rolled it out and tried it on little kids under the age of 5.
No.
And something like 97% of them were creative geniuses. By the time they're 12, that's gone down to 14%. By the time they're adult, it's about 3%. So we're born creative geniuses and it fades. The good news is you can get it back. So I did so that book, I did 3 years research of looking into talking to the people that bring out the creative genius, bring out the best in people.
Creative genius. You mean, and I'm assuming you mean, because you make mention of it getting drummed out of you as you grow up, imagination could be another word, yeah?
Yeah, imagination, yeah. I mean, look at little kids. I put in a piece about my little grandson, Luca, my youngest grandson, and he'll sit there, and you've seen little boys do it. He's just in a world of his own, and he's got a pen, and it'll be... Yeah. And then there's explosions, then it'll beat up one of the other Lego toys, and that is imagination. Kids don't filter, we filter. I better not say that. Google did a lot of research into as well, has done a lot of research into creativity and getting people to be brave with their creativity, coming up with an idea, and a lot of it is feeling safe to actually stand up and come up with an idea that everyone might think, which might be ludicrous. It might be an idiotic, but if you keep churning out ideas, there'll be a genius one amongst it, and we're scared to churn the ideas out.
I think that is why, because I mean, like generally in the world of psychology, it gets bandied around, and it's like anything, generally speaking, but there's always exceptions. But generally speaking, from 0 to 7 are the formative years, said Sigmund Freud and other people. But during that period, it's like when we're in the theta state, isn't it? So imaginary friends are not exactly imaginary. They're almost reality to the child because it's that believable, and then we have that drummed out of us.
Absolutely.
Do you think that's why these big, like, Silicon Valley companies and things like Google started to encourage their employees to dress however they wanted, to like have the slide from upstairs down, to make it more childlike, to bring that state of mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Google at one point asked that their staff spend 20% of their time in creativity and coming up with ideas and playing. I mean, they'll have pinball machines, anything to play. I mean, I find that very difficult because I'm old school and I think go to bloody work, stop playing. I find that irritating. I think I like adults to act like adults. That's like get grown men playing computer games. I'm like, you know, I like adults to act like, but I understand the creative process. And obviously working with so many people in LA, it's a creative factory there. Now that I love, you know, we can make a movie about, oh, most of them haven't got a penny to make this to rub together, but it's that constant, let's make a movie out of this, or that could be that letting the ideas flow. And when you think of it, look at some of the shows that were on telly. If I come up with them or you did, we'd sit there and go, don't be daft, you know, like trying to meet a future partner and it's pitch black and you're wandering around with no clothes on, it's pitch.
Yeah,
I mean,
dating in the dark. What's that about?
Yeah, but somebody come up with that idea and it seemed to be doing well. Love Island. I mean, I'd feel an idiot coming up with that. I would feel an idiot coming up with that. I would definitely hold that one back. So, you know, people are coming up with ideas. Look at Elon Musk, probably our greatest creative genius, and he does some dumb stuff as well. I mean,
I'm not sure he is that creative. I think he's a front man to make the public accept certain things that militaries want. And yeah, I'm going to let me patent be free for everyone to use, so I look like Mr. Nice Guy. Well, hang on a minute. You nick most of it off Tesla anyway, and his patents.
I would like to meet him. I've kind of put it out there. I want to meet that guy. I'm quite curious to meet him. I'm quite curious. It'd be interesting.
It'd be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but that's another subject, because there's some people out there that aren't like other people. And it's almost biologically, they're not like other people. And I can't explain it. Tom Cruise is another one. Look at him and I feel like he's not like other people. I don't know how or why, but he just doesn't feel like other people. I can't quite define it, but Elon Musk is.
I mean, he's the poster boy for Scientology, isn't he? He's so.
Yes, but there's something about him that doesn't feel like other people, and it's not just the Scientology. And I don't know, I can't explain it. But when I look at him, he's not like other people. It's a weird one. I can't explain it. It's more of a biological thing. I think, how can they be different? They remind me of the man who fell to earth. That kind of thing. I can't explain it. I have no logical explanation for it, but they just feel different. When I tap into them, they feel very different from normal people. So it's a weird one. But yeah, creative genius. And I think I've got another one is we're becoming more isolated as we work, and people are getting bad at socializing. You know, in my day, you were out every night, and now my friend who had a high-rise flat, and she said she felt like she was going home to a filing cabinet, or a drawer in the filing cabinet. And people are working from home. They're not out socializing. They're losing their social skills. And I think, what's the point if you're not out mixing with people and doing amazing things? So I think one of the things I've put in there, I put a chapter on finding your tribe. And I think your tribe, you know, you get the people you just kind of, you're on the same wavelength, you get each other. It might be all Trekkies or whatever, or you're all into tap dancing, whatever it is. It might be you're all creative and come up with ideas, or you might be intellectuals, or whatever it is. But finding your tribe, I've got a chapter on that, because I think it's really, really important to have the right people around you.
I think you mean more so, Laura, in the world of reality, don't you, Loan? Because there's a lot of people probably think they have found their tribe because they're in Facebook groups and they're on their own, but that's actually not necessarily that constructive, because it's isolating you more, isn't it?
Yeah, it is isolating you more. It's real life. I like real life. You've got to have people, and it might be you talk online to them and you're part of a group, but in real life, meet up once a month or go and see them all, catch up, or you've got to be around people, haven't you? I don't understand how people are losing that ability, and it's quite scary, because the young people, Going back to basic sociology, back to original Haralambous early sociology, they found that more you're connected to other people in real life, the less liable you are to commit suicide. I mean, there was a huge amount of studies into this. So even people who they go to their local church and, you know, they go to bingo on a Monday night or whatever it is, they come from a big family, they're less liable to commit suicide. So the more isolated people get, they obviously go downhill emotionally and mentally. So the tribe is important, and people who get you and get what you're saying and get what you're thinking and you get them, it's lovely, isn't it? You've had it, you've been around people, you're on the same wavelength, you just feel like you come alive. I mean, it's perfect.
Cool. So in terms of, we know it's about working life, the new book. In terms of someone at home who gets this, and the majority of people that, well, anyone could see this video when it goes out, but it's probably going to be a mind therapist of some description, or a fortune teller. It's going to be somebody in the new age complementary alternative medicine field, likely. How applicable are the strategies in this book for them to use in their own life and business? Oh no,
anybody can use them. If any of my books, you can pick them up and just work from them. People say I give too much information away, make it too easy. Should make it a bit harder, and they've got to come and see me. But no, it's a book you pick up and use. It's very, very, very easy to use. Yeah.
Cool. So I believe you also run live courses, yeah?
Yeah, I've got one coming up in March 2020. I love that year.
Mention that because obviously you might be watching this in 2022. But there'll still probably be other courses listed on Anne's website. But yeah, you've got one coming up.
There will be. And I've got trainers in various places. So if I'm not doing one of my trainers will be, and they're really spot on. They're really good. But I've got one in March. I'm trying to think, 13th to the 15th. That'll be in Maidenhead. But I'll probably be doing one in Dubai at the end of the year. I think one of my trainers doing one in New Zealand in the autumn. We're looking at another one in France. I'll probably do another one in Norway later on in the year. So give us a shout if you want to train.
Basically, whenever you see this video, if you go to Anne's website, or when you see this video, assuming it's before March 2020, there'll be a link below it. But if not, there'll be Anne's website below it, and you can go and visit her and find out more and stuff. So, thank you for putting up with my devil's advocate, skeptical.
Ask anything you like.
View of things. Okay, I've asked everyone that I've interviewed, and I will be asking everyone the same question, which is: if somebody came to you, work on the basis that they're just starting out, because ironically the advice you'd give someone who's just starting out, there can often be people out there who are already established who can learn from that, because it's often the obvious things that people miss. What would be your top 3 tips to somebody who wanted to get into the world of, I'll just say the world of therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. For one, I would say find your guru, the person who you relate to the most, because it's nice to have somebody to sort of look at and see what they're doing and listen to what they teach. I would say keep it simple. Don't try and learn everything. Don't go on a course every bloody weekend for your toolbox. Don't try and learn everything. Keep it simple. Rather than trying to learn loads of techniques, concentrate on your client. Listen to them. The best therapists just listen and use their instinct how to work with that person. Working instinctively works far better than some technique. I think they're my 2 main ones. What was my 3rd one? I think, yeah, keeping it simple. And I think look at who comes to you, because who comes to you will show you your specialist area. You will have a specialist area. And rather than run around trying to find it, you'll find people with a specific thing keep coming to you. I get addictions. I've got addictions. My daughter gets people with anxiety and panic attack. They never come to me. I don't know what to do with them. I wouldn't know what to do with people having panic attacks, but I know what to do with addictions. I watch people and they attract a type. So see who comes to you. What's the common theme? Then you will find what your absolute special special instinct, what that best part of you, that specialist area is.
Excellent. And then I've got a couple more things on my list here. Unfortunately, I have got time to ask them. Hooray! First one, I know, and I'm not going to mention names because obviously, and I'm not expecting you to either, because you wouldn't. Well, you just couldn't ethically because we're applying confidentiality. But I am aware that you have got certain celebrity clients.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we mentioned you work with companies before that are household names, but I mean, actually, on a one-to-one basis, celebrity clients as well. How does that come about? You know, the people. How do you end up getting celebrity clients?
Right, I tell you what happened to me. I just worked bloody hard for many years. And I worked really hard, and then somebody will come to you. Then they'll tell somebody else. Then they'll tell somebody else. And when a celebrity comes to you, they're so fed up with people. The minute somebody comes to them, you got them, oh, you could help me get a television show. And then their information's leaked. None of that. I don't ask them for anything. I just don't ask them for anything. I wouldn't dream of it. And I've never had a leak. And I get on well with them. So they tend to come back. So that was the main thing. But it's like, I don't know if you know, but I made a video with Little Mix, and it's had about 400.
All right.
Yeah, it's hilarious. 450,000 hits, obviously, because they're the biggest girl band in the world.
You know what I'm doing when we finish this interview, before my next scheduled interview, I'm going on YouTube. What video is it?
Yeah, it's something like On the Road. It's something like On the Road, and it was to do with their spooky tour. I'm not named in it, but I make a video and I do them little readings and things. But what it is, somebody that works with them has come to me for years. So when they went, our new album's about spooky stuff, we need to go to somebody, so my name come up, and that's what happens. It's like people have said, I went into a meeting in Hollywood, and somebody mentioned you, and somebody across the room went, oh yeah, I know Anne. You know, so you just work hard and you do a good job and treat people respectfully. Eventually the names start to show up. That will happen. I mean, you know, that will happen. I've never gone looking, or I've seen people with well-known people go, oh, come to me, and, you know, and start hassling people. It's embarrassing. I've been out with celebrities and people come up hassling them, and it's embarrassing. And I've never known them do that. You do a good job, and I don't care who it is. You treat them respectfully and do a good job. I don't care if they're rich or poor. Work well for everybody. Eventually they'll hear about you. I mean, how one of the biggest names came, a girl that knew one of the big names came to me, and she was playing a game. I'm going to show you, this is all nonsense. And she kept going, I want you to tell me about my Uncle Fred, you know, because I'm worried about him. And I went, I'm not picking up any Uncle Fred. You sure you got an Uncle Fred? She's making him up. So she went back to celebrity and went, you like all that spooky stuff. You want to go and see that one? She sussed out I was playing the game with her. And then this guy came, and obviously they tell other people. So it's one of them things. But no, doing good work for people, whoever they are, eventually the celebs find you.
I'm going to pick out and remind you of just something you said right at the start of that. For people at home who may not have noticed it, was the, well, I'm going to paraphrase it, but if they rewind and watch again, they'll recognise the bit I'm on about. It's effectively, in your words, you said, don't treat them like a celebrity. Because they'll get naffed off getting that all the time. That treat them as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they need to feel safe talking to you, because people are forever leaking, telling everybody. You watch the American shows and they began, oh, I did a reading for so-and-so and I told her, and you just don't know. You don't talk about her marriage problems on a chat show. You just know. I just wouldn't do it. I've even had press come up. They know I'm dealing with certain people and there's stuff going on. So I get press come up and try and get information out of me. And they'll pretend they're not press and have a reading and go, oh, I heard you know so-and-so, and try and get information out of you. People do that. You just have to be really, you can't have any grey areas with this. You can't have grey areas. It's black and white. That ain't going to happen. Forget it. I don't care how much money you got. It ain't going to happen. I sleep at night. I sleep well at night. I treat people properly and they appreciate it. You go out one night with a celeb, you'd be amazed at how many people hassle you and want stuff from you. And And, you know, it's annoying. So, no, I don't ask for anything. I just do my job, treat them properly, like you do. And, yeah, it grows from there. They'll tell other people, go, it's all right. See Anne, she's all right.
Excellent. There's valuable lessons there. Extremely valuable lessons there for people watching. I'm not saying that if you follow those lessons, you're automatically going to get celebrity clients. You may not, but follow those lessons and you will get more clients at the very least. So it's got to be a win-win. So, okay, we are sadly getting very close to the end of the allotted time slot. So, first things first, what are your website, social media channel? How do people find you? Because I know you've got a load of great videos on YouTube that people can find out more, learn more, and whatnot. What's your channel on YouTube?
Just look up Anne Jirsch on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Anne Jirsch, ANNE, then JIRS for sugar, CH. Anne Jirsch. You look me up. There's nobody else with my name, which is handy. So
yes,
it is handy.
It's Anne's site you will find when you search. Excellent.
Yeah, just look me up, say hello. I'm on Facebook. I do a lot on Facebook. I don't amuse everybody, that's for sure. But yeah, some people
If when you go on YouTube to check out, don't forget, search Little Mix on the Road, or perhaps with the word spooking, you might see Anne.
Yeah, I think
also,
it's on the road. Yeah.
If you type in Jonathan Royal and Jirsch, you'll also see when Anne had me on her show and took me into the future, and I discovered the rather depressing future for the hypnotherapy world. I'm not going to tell you about that. You have to go and watch the video. Yes, things are bleak unless you do things a bit differently. Thank you ever so much, Anne. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you. See you all next week on Hypnosis Week.